We're back here on the platform this evening, and we are speaking with a family pastor, someone who specializes in giving lectures to families and to counseling families, Pastor Ricardo Miller from Pathway Life Church in Dallas, Texas. And you are Bahamian, so I'm sure you are keeping up to date with the news.
Yes.
And you know of the amount of murders that we have had. And the statistics show that crime has decreased somewhat, but we still have a whole lot of violent crimes in the country. The other day, a study was produced on gender-based violence in this country. And people are grappling for answers and solutions. And despite the various crime reports that have been produced, this latest gender-based violence report and all the recommendations, there are some elderly people who say that things are not going to get better. Right. That every generation is going to be weaker, they say. And based on how the world is turning, Pastor Miller, that we are in this era of post-modernity, where children are conflicted, where the value system is off, where the moral compass is either broken or out of place. And the moral compass is supposed to be due north, but rather than looking at north, you have our youth who are looking in an opposite direction. What do you say about that?
I believe a part of our challenge that we have is that we do have some challenges in our country. We're a young country, and the plight to which we constantly hear through the newspaper and the news and through just in talking and hanging with people all comes across from a negative perspective. The Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. I am a strong believer that your words create your world. I believe that there's a focus that has to be established, that we're going to give more attention to good. Because let me tell you this, I really believe this. I remember when my life shifted for the negative. First, I was the big-haired boy who ducked school because I had low self-esteem and didn't want to even be around anyone. I just didn't have no pride, no respect, no desire for anything. I remember that was about 8th grade. Then at the 9th grade, I started to hang out with one guy who was sort of a gang guy. And in the 10th grade, I started hanging with some very popular guys. Here's what I noticed. I noticed that when I showed that I had temper, I had short temper, I got praised among the kids. So when the fellas say, boy, get your big head from around here, and I jump him and I hit him, they said, boy, don't play with Cardo, boy. Well, I said, I don't play, mate. So watch this. The next week when I come back to school, I start walking a little bit more now, like you know, but you already hear it. So watch this. I found myself where the temper factor kept growing and the applause kept growing. And so I started like, well, listen, we're going to rule the school. Then we're going to own Soldier Road. Then we're dominating. We're going to do this. Because we were going after this applause.
You were playing to the crowd.
I was playing to the crowd.
Yeah.
But what was the crowd giving? The crowd was giving me a pat on the back for negativity. I am of the strong belief that if we would focus on the good. Watch this. Who stands up most of the time in the assemblies at our schools and our church youth meetings? Guys like me who I really don't glamour or glorify my story in the sense of most of these kids are confused. They're like, well, the only way you get a mic is you have to go wayward and then turn back. Because most of the guys who are doing the assemblies, most of the guys who are doing the youth program speaking is talking about, yeah, I used to sell drugs. Yeah, I used to do that. So most of the good kids even saying, well, is good right? Because obviously you normally arrive after you've gone astray and come back. That's what a lot of people are selling. So at our church, we have an executive pastor. His parents were deacons in the church, and he grew up in the church, and his children are now in the church. They're worship leaders and going off to college. And I'm like, you got 3 generations doing exceptionally well. And he said to me one time, he said, Ricardo, I respect you so much, man. When you preaching, people are listening to you. He said, man, I don't have a story like you. He said, man, I don't even want to preach because I just want to hear you. I said, no, brother, we got it wrong. They need to be highlighting you more. He said, what do you mean? I said, you show that it works. You show that you could go through school without giving up your virginity and feeling bad about it, get married, have children do well, stay in the faith, have family time. I say, you are the perfect example. But our society doesn't give him the platform. They give me the platform. Because all other guys like me, which comes from the negative, look what all of this crap this guy came through. So for a long time, I really don't talk my story for the most part because I want to help young people to capture this. What we need them to know is what they should be doing in relations to right, celebrate that, and watch that grow.
Yeah, but you say that, but the young man who is watching you in Washington Street and Pedolio and 5th Street, the Grove, they believe it's cool to be dumb.
Right, yep.
It's cool to have your pants dragging on the ground. It's cool to be unkempt.
It's because there's an audience celebrating that. And the audience who are telling them not to do it doesn't matter to them. So the applause for your short temper, the teachers may say, listen, you don't need to fight no more. But you don't understand. All the girls like me. All the boys scared of me. So really, y'all don't matter. So the same thing with the sagging of the pants. Nobody really wants to be dumb, but the temper that comes out to say, read this book, and to be exposed. I remember when they used to say, read the book, and the book used to go around. And there's 30 students in the class, and I watched that book, and I'm thinking, okay, by the time that comes to me, it's going to be right here. And so right before 3 persons, before it comes to me, I want to go to the restroom. Can I go to the bathroom? Teacher said, you ain't going to no bathroom. One of the fellas figured it out. Yeah. He said, but he tried to duck reading. He can't read. I said, but what you saying, boy? But you joking. And so guess what happened? We go out a brawl in the class. Ricardo, get out of here. Right? I walk out. I said, boy, listen, after school for you. Yeah. Now watch this. I got what I wanted. At the end of the day, I really didn't want to read to show my inability to efficiently read the script. But I also showed the fellow, listen, boy, listen, after school. So now that's what the kids want. They want to see what happens after school. And I also got what I wanted, which was I didn't want to read. But the truth is, when I learned how to read and what the benefits of it was and how it added value to me, I'm a lover of books now. I'm telling you, I have the largest library in my home of anyone in my circle. I'm a reader now, but when I left school, I couldn't read. Where did that happen? How did that happen? Because I started to understand anything that adds value to you, you would be more attracted to. Anything that takes away from you, you move away from. So the fellas on the street are feeling like value is being added to them when they get the salute, even on the prison bus. Yeah, see John right there, boy, he's a straight up gangster. Boy, we respect you, boy. Respect you. Respect you, you are shackled. But see, his value is, when the fellas say respect you, he's seeing that in terms of more manhood.
You know, they say enough respect.
Enough respect.
Yeah.
They're missing it. And see, we have to help them to capture you're seeing value in the wrong thing. And when we do get someone who gets it, we try to force it down the guys who didn't get it head, and we can't do it through force.
You've heard that there were politicians who were interested in a national youth service way back in Sir Lyndon's time. He was seeking to put in place a national youth service. Given the failure of institutions in the society, the home, the school, churches, isn't there a real need for a national youth service to affirm young men and women for character building and all this type of thing?
It's beneficial and it's necessary, but it has to have the support of the home. there are a lot of kids who find themselves in programs. I think I heard a years back that there was a program in Eleuthera that was trying to help boys out.
Or in Andros.
In Andros, one of the other islands. And where's that program? See, you need the home. You need the home. You need the mother's involvement. You need the guardian involvement. If the dad's not there, you may need the grandmother involvement. But you need someone, honestly, to be there and do their part. But we're dealing with a lot of people who don't know what to do. And they have children, but they just unfortunately end up with a child, but don't have the know-how on how to raise that child. And so the child is growing up, and the mother just says, don't touch my child. But you ain't even helping your child. So the parent don't even know the difference with that. So putting them inside of a program, which we have a lot of programs, a lot of the gentlemen who are running non-governmental programs will tell you, if the home is not supportive of the initiative, the kids will give you attitude and oftentimes won't capture what is really benefiting them in the program.
But you wrote parenting with a purpose.
Yep.
You're asking for homes to give support. But Ricardo Miller, the home in many cases cannot give support because the home really is lost. The home is dysfunctional.
Well, that's
and
why.
So we are fighting an uphill and sometimes a losing battle.
It is it's an uphill battle, but it's not a losing. We don't have to lose. I don't think at the end of the day well, here's what I tell people. There are people succeeding in every environment. And that means they came up with the same challenges, but they decided to defy the odds. My book provides people with the insight that simply helps them to understand, listen, your street don't make you. How and what you did in school at the end of the day really doesn't make you either, because I have known kids who've done exceptionally well in school and are doing terrible in life. So what does make you? I'm going into that purpose. You got to find your reason for existence. You only got a certain amount of time in the earth. How you use that is going to determine a lot of who you are and what you become.
So the fellow who is well schooled is not necessarily the person who is well educated for life.
That's a fact.
And education is about being prepared to take on the challenges of life.
That's a fact. And if we were to have a system, I don't know if they're doing any studies on it right now, but check out every 5 years for kids who graduated and look at the grade point average and look at their rankings when they left school and where they are and what they're doing. Check that out. Oftentimes, you'll be surprised to see who is not doing well.
We talked a whole lot about crime. And every society in the Western Hemisphere is troubled by the incidence of crime.
Right.
And there are a good many people who believe that, it has to do with economy, the kind of economy that you're in, and it also has to do with materialism and what drives you. And there are a lot of people who are driven by material things. They want stuff. They want some more stuff. They want one of those same things what Ricardo wearing. How you fix that when people are driven in, as I said, this postmodern era by stuff?
Going back to parenting with a purpose again, you have to get parents, we have to get adults, we have to get those who have the opportunity to influence the next generation to help them to understand the things don't make you. Stuff don't make you. Stuff is nice. Stuff can be acquired. You ought to get stuff as you grow and develop. Listen, I'm not against stuff. I want you to have the best stuff. However, understand stuff doesn't come first. The making of you is more important than the stuff. If you make you well, you'll have stuff. But if you try to have stuff without making you, you will lose the stuff and live a frustrating life. And there are a lot of people who have stuff but don't have joy. They don't have peace. They don't even have the comfort or the appreciation of the stuff. And so they're losing their children because they didn't get it right, because things don't make us. We make ourselves through the principles and values that we live our lives through. that ultimately allows us to say, listen, it's not about the size house I have in comparison to my sibling. It's not about the Clark shoes. It's not about the land belt. It's not about the name brand clothing. It's about how am I growing and developing and adding value to where I'm at.
But let's put that on parents now, and the same can be said that the mother with the Gucci bag or the Fendi bag or the Ferragamo shoe invested a whole lot of money in stuff, but did not invest in Johnny and buy Johnny the kind of books that he should be reading. All right? But she bought herself some stuff, some nice sunglasses. All right?
It happens all the time.
And Johnny cannot read.
Right. It happens all the time. The cleanest boy going to school on first day of school. I mean, all sharp. But guess what? No book and bag. Come on, no parent review after school. No finding out who the teachers are. No finding out the need. Listen, I'm a strong believer. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I teach this, I tell parents this everywhere I go. Someone is assigned to help you in life. I believe that. When you have a purpose that needs to be maximized, we are never left alone. All of us can track back to someone who influenced us to get us to another level. And I says, when it comes to us doing right with our children, we have to be open to say, listen, my child can't read, but I can't afford it, but I guarantee you there's a teacher at that school who would spend an extra hour back, but you got to ask. And then you got to make that boy submit himself to the process. But I don't want to ask them. I don't want them to think. And my Charlie, you know what time the bus leave? Hold on. What's the greatest need here? And when we talked about in time past, you heard about kids walking from maybe Prince Charles to GHS, to school. If they didn't have a ride because they wanted a better education, they would walk to school and they would do this, they would do that because they saw the value that was being added to them, not the sacrifice that needed to be made. They just saw, I want this. And so sacrifice comes after figuring out what you want.
Do we put the premium on education as we should? Because there are a good number of people who put the premium on other things. This is my idolatrous kind of place where people worship things.
Yep.
Or they worship the car.
We got it bad.
That's idolatry. Do we put the emphasis really on education?
No, we don't. Not for the masses. Now there is a group of people.
Are we sufficiently invested in education? And I'm not talking about the amount of money that the state spends on education. I'm talking about a personal investment in education.
Go and look at the ratio and the numbers in relation to people doing night classes. Look at the ratio for people doing extra classes on Saturdays, be it any age. You'll be amazed the amount of men in our society, amount of young boys coming out of school didn't get it at all. They just went through the system. But there is opportunities through different programs that will allow them to get it. But we don't have a culture that says, you know what, accept the fact that you may have a deficiency, but that can change. Don't worry about it. No, if nobody knows it, I don't want them to know it, and I'm going to hide it as long as I can.
You know, a colleague of mine said that a young man came to him to fill in an application form for a job. And the young man couldn't spell his mother's name.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I can believe that.
You believe that? That's absolutely amazing.
Let me give you a quick story. Atlantis came. I was here on the island at the time. I wanted a job. Me and my friends, them like, boy, Atlantis make good money, man. They got that round-the-clock shift. You know what, let's go over the bridge, try to make that change. So we hiked the ride over the bridge. A couple of my friends, I remember going on the line. They passed us the clipboard. The clipboard had the paper to say, fill out the paper. I look at the clipboard, and I was maybe with a dozen guys. I look at it, and I started writing it. I said, you know what? I said, boy, the sun's so hot, boy, I ain't want this stinking job. And the fellas would say, but they trying to slave man and think. Now, really, I got turned off from it because I couldn't spell Elizabeth. I lived in Elizabeth Estate at the time. Yeah. And rather than ask one of the guys on the line to spell Elizabeth Estate, I walked off from the job.
Yeah.
And I never got a job until the late Bishop Dean Wells gave me a job, not based on the form, but just say, you want a construction job, just jump on the back of the truck. And I ended up with a job. But then his daughter, Mary Wells, told me, you know what, if God's going to do something in your life, you need to go back to school. And I went back to school. And then I had to accept the fact that the deficiencies that I had to address.
Well, you've come a long way in a short period of time. You've come a long way for not being able to spell Elizabeth to pastoring and writing books.
God is good. You know, but I work on myself every day, and I tell my son he got to work on him, because once again, I said it a little bit earlier, my success is his normal. Yeah. And so you remember,
but you have to be consistent as well.
Right, big time.
Because that is what success is. Consistency over time. Over a long period of time. You work on it every single day. To hone your skills and to be a better person every day.
Every day. And you know what was a big turning point when I started? Because I really had some excuses that was sitting on my shoulders that I thought I couldn't bypass. And Pastor Braddock Clay, he's at Evangelistic Temple now, he said to me, back then, he was going at the College of Bahamas, and he said, man, Ricardo, because he probably was hearing me nag and talk a lot about the negativity of what I had to face in growing up. And he said, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. And when he said it, I got it. I got the aha. And from that moment, it wasn't about what happened to me. It was about what could happen for me.
And how you respond to the challenges. Because there are many challenges, many encumbrances that you'd have in your life's journey.
Yep.
And so you have to know how to navigate those challenges.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, that's the road I'm trotting.
Finally, the church and the role of the church in bringing about the shift that we need, because there is a need for a shift. What can the church do in a modern society to deal with all of these challenges that we've been talking about?
I think one of the things the church can
because I don't want to cut you, sorry, because a lot of people have been speaking in recent times about the irrelevancy of the church. That the church used to be relevant when people were poor and people needed some help. And there are a growing number of people who look at the church today as being an irrelevancy.
Right. And you're true, and that's true. And unfortunately, we have a lot of pastors, a lot of leaders, because I sit in a number of pastor forums in the United States, and we're talking about the same subject matter because there are people who really, they're wondering if the church is in denial for the most part, just going through the motion. And so I believe that there's a need for a number of churches, for the most part, the majority, to become agents of change, not in talk only, but to literally become a part of a movement or an entity in our society that's bringing about change, even if it only starts with the street that the church is on. That means if churches in the Bahamas, if they would take care of the street they were on, we would have a better Bahamas. I mean, as an agent of change in that of the church itself.
Yes.
But you'll have people watching the show right now and say that he sound like no Rev because now he sound like he's a little bashing the church. My thing is, we don't only talk God, we have to live God in the earth to be the manifestation of Jesus walking through the community, bringing better to the street. So we're not just shouting, we're not just praying, hoping and believing something to change when we're not practically doing anything. And so we got to get out of the four walls and not do what we've been doing to get something different. We have to do something different to get something different. And so if you check out some of the worst neighborhoods are dominantly ran with so many churches. That ain't right. That ain't right. So every pastor, every leader has to ask, how much value am I bringing to this street? Because there are some churches that are called to the street, some that's called to the neighborhood, some that's called to the island, some that's called to the country, some that's maybe called to the world. But at the end of the day, it should be about letting the light shine so that men will see thy good works and glorify the Father which in heaven.
I end with this. Someone told me just last night that the country would be a better place if Christians were to live like Jesus.
Come on. I totally agree.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your being here today. Pastor Ricardo Miller, you are back in town, and I hope that you come very often so that we can have conversations like this.
We'll love to. We'll love to. Thank you for having me, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Good evening, everyone. Excellent show. We're going to run it a couple of times.